This is Sports Central with Joe D and John Franchini on WICR.
And we are back minutes away from the NFL releasing their schedule. But before we jump back onto the National Football League, let's jump in to the beloved New York Knicks, who despite not being in the playoffs are still being talked about, especially after the firing of Coach Woodson and friends.
Inevitable firing of Coach Woodson.
And it was only a matter of time since Phil Jackson walked in. You know, you felt it coming.
You knew
it was coming, and it finally has happened. Woodson and the entire crew no longer a part of the Knicks organization. And now the question is, who is next?
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, going back just to say a little short thing about Mike Woodson, I kind of felt, I was a big hater of Mike Woodson. I really didn't think
you were a hater.
I really didn't think he was that good of a coach, to be honest with you.
Really? And why is that, franchise? Why?
Well, I mean, look at his track record. He couldn't get out of the first round in Atlanta.
Okay.
He's supposed to be a defensive coach.
But that certainly isn't a...
He's supposed to be a defensive coach, and the Knicks can't play defense to save their lives, and that's the same story with them for the past 10 years. As far as communicating with the players, he communicates and plays with the wrong players as far as J.R. Smith goes, because he loves J.R. Smith for whatever reason that is. Meanwhile, he disregards Iman Shumpert, who is definitely, to me, a better contributor to the New York Knicks than J.R. Smith is.
And should be on a higher pedestal than J.R. Smith. Yes,
right.
I agree.
Because Iman Shumpert plays defense and J.R. Smith does not play defense and makes very stupid decisions. He made stupid decisions during the season, and I just think that he was a very overrated coach, and I wish him the best, but I can't help feel bad for him since he did have a winning record, and he was clinging on to hopes that he would stay, but it wasn't the case.
You know what? When I get out of this Woodson thing is he had a good run in New York.
Right. Right.
You got 2.5 years. You got.
Joe, shut it off, Joe.
Shut what off?
Right there.
What do you got?
Yeah, no, the other one.
What do you got?
There.
Nothing's on.
Oh.
What's going on? What are you hearing things?
I must be going crazy. I could have sworn.
For goodness sake, this kid something's wrong with him today.
It must have been the medication I was on this past couple of days, so the laryngitis.
I think you're still on it. What are you listening to over there? Maybe it's your computer.
I think it was. I apologize, Joe.
I'm over here working the board like a slave, controlling everything, and you got the decency to interrupt me like that.
You know what? You're right. It wasn't me. It was me.
It wasn't you.
No, it was me. It wasn't you.
Hi. Thank you.
Holy cow.
What
didn't even notice that was open. All right, anyway.
As we were saying before, I was rudely interrupted and accused of doing something wrong.
Go ahead. Your spiel.
My spiel on Mr. Woodson, Coach Woodson. Well, you got to give it to him. He had his run in New York 2.5 years going 109 and 79 overall record. Third best in franchise history. Only behind who? Can you tell me who? The only two coaches who have better winning percentage for the New York Knicks.
Pat Riley and Jeff Van Gundy.
Very good. Ding, ding, ding. If I had a prize, I'd give it to you. But, what happened this year just says it all. And it's crazy how things could change in an instant. You went from being nearly on top of the East to going to the bottom. And despite being in the playoff race this year, which was pathetic that they are still in the race.
Yeah, jeez.
Unbelievable that they still had a chance to make the playoffs. Of course, it's always entertaining to see. You'd always want to see the Knicks in there, but regardless, it was only time before it would happen.
Only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time, and I'm sure he'll find the job rather quickly.
Right. I don't know about rather quickly.
I
tell you what, I don't think he's going to be a head coach next season.
Really?
That's my prediction.
A year off, or he's going to be an assistant?
I think that he'll be an assistant, or if he's going to be the head coach of a team, he might be the head coach of the Detroit Pistons.
Hey, you know what? Detroit, I could see him out in Utah. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Some not a big market team though.
Maybe Minnesota.
A lower market team. As far maybe Minnesota and Utah, I can see. Possibly.
I
can't
know.
really see Utah. I say maybe he'll go to Minnesota or Detroit.
Hey, we shall see. But now
the search begins, Joe.
The search begins, and the number one candidate, of course, as I'm sure everybody by now has heard, is TNT analyst Steve Kerr, who spoke about his, the rumors on his Sirius XM basketball show that he has, and
Right.
he addressed those rumors, and this is what he had to say.
I do anticipate talking with Phil Jackson at some point. But, when that time comes, it'll come. But for now, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. This is the NBA. Coaches basically know when they go in that they're likely to be fired. It's a brutal business. It's a brutal profession. And, I think back to a year ago when the Knicks were one of the best stories in the league. They win 54 games. I thought Mike Woodson was one of the top coaches in the league, did a fantastic job. And then everything fell apart this year for a number of reasons. Tyson Chandler's injury was a major factor. I thought the J.R. Smith suspension early in the season threw the team off right from the start. And then some personnel moves that didn't work out. They lost a lot of veteran leadership from last year's team, guys like Jason Kidd and Kurt Thomas, and they were replaced by younger players who probably weren't as equipped to handle the adversity that the team faced this year. So I think this was largely circumstantial.
Preach,
but,
Steve, preach.
This is the way the NBA works. The coach is usually the first one to pay, and I feel bad for Mike. I think he's done an excellent job in New York. But between the struggles of the team this year and the new regime with Phil Jackson, I think this was, and I don't think I'm the only one saying this. Obviously, I think the writing was sort of on the wall the last couple of months.
And he said it best there. That the writing was on the wall, and it was only a matter of time until it happened.
Yeah,
And now, despite Phil Jackson coming out and saying that the search is beyond Steve Kerr, it's not his job yet, it certainly seems as if he would be the right candidate for the position.
Well, I'll tell you what. My prediction as far as going forward is, yes, they're going to look at everything that plays out as far as this NBA playoff goes, because there are two coaches that are on the hot seat right now that are even in the NBA playoffs as right now, and that's Mark Jackson in Golden State, and that's even Frank Vogel in Indiana.
Well, very inconsistent Indiana Pacers team this last month, and that certainly showed in Game 1.
So those two guys could be very attractive candidates if they get canned by their respective teams.
I don't think Mark Jackson will get canned in Golden State. Nah, I mean, that team has been...
They like him.
That's been a complete 360 out west in Golden State, and they've really done something over there. I don't think they get rid of him yet.
Those players like him too.
I think if
Vogel,
on the other hand, you got a team here that was atop the East, should have ended atop the East, and they just couldn't finish. That team has really crumbled at the end of the season, and I wouldn't be shocked if they got eliminated in the first round. But
if they get eliminated in the first round, Frank Vogel's going to get fired.
He deserves it. He's going
to get fired. I guarantee it. I guarantee you that he will get fired if he loses.
You have one of the top teams in the East, if not the.
And that is absolutely unacceptable if he loses in the first round. But it's very possible. The way they've been playing, it's very possible.
I don't want Frank Vogel with the Knicks.
I like him.
He doesn't bring anything.
What do you mean? He doesn't bring anything?
The thing with Phil Jackson,
I think he just has a coaches a team. I think he coaches a team of overrated basketball players. As far as Roy Hibbert goes, he's very overrated and very soft.
So is Tyson Chandler.
I'm not. I was just about to say.
I'm just saying. So is Tyson Chandler.
He is. No, without a doubt, he is. Roy Hibbert's soft, and Roy Hibbert bodied Tyson Chandler in that playoff series.
I know. I just.
And Steve Kerr says, and on that clip you just played, that the loss of Tyson Chandler hurt the Knicks, and it did, but they wouldn't have been that much better with him because they did have him later on.
That
injury happened. Everybody tends to forget that injury happened very early in the season.
And if it's the only thing Tyson Chandler brings to that team is defense, defense, rebounding, and blocks. Because if he's not scoring,
barely that.
He's not scoring.
Blocks.
He's not scoring, so he's purely a defensive player. So if that's what you were really missing, come on, you were missing a lot. You're missing guard play. You were missing a team out there. That's what you were missing.
Right. So I tell you what, my prediction is that Steve Kerr is going to be the new Knicks coach going into next year. I mean, the other guys that they've been talking about, because Phil wants the triangle.
It's the safest prediction to go with. It's what everyone's hearing, and exactly. Phil wants someone who knows that system.
And so far the names that have been thrown out
they're not crazy names.
are not crazy names. Like Ron Harper was a name I heard the other day.
Really? I actually have a list that Newsday put together of the
Derek
top.
Fisher.
Yeah, Derek Fisher was on that list. I mean,
All guys
Listen,
that aren't big names that but have played for Phil Jackson and are Phil Jackson guys.
I could see Derek Fisher joining the Knicks, playing one more season in the NBA and coming in as a player.
No way.
Absolutely.
He already says he's retiring.
I don't know.
Why would he come to play for the Knicks for 1 year?
I think he'd come. I could easily see him coming for 1 year and then plugging him in as an assistant right away.
But who's going to be the head coach? You have to have a head coach
I know,
before you have an assistant.
Of course,
Joe.
I know that. I know that. I'm just thinking right now. Like you said, Steve.
Well, that's very, very, very possible. I mean,
do I think if he retires anyway, I'm sure Phil Jackson, if he wants to bring him in as an assistant, he could bring him in as an assistant. But I think it would be key if Phil Jackson could bring Derek Fisher to the Knicks for 1 year, despite saying he wants to retire. Bring him in 1 year. You bring in a young guard, and you have this kid literally sit with Derek Fisher and learn how to run this offense.
Yeah, the triangle.
You know?
Derek Fisher ran this offense to 3 championships.
And that's what I'm saying. You bring him in as a player. He doesn't have to play. I mean, bring him in as a veteran, as that leader.
Like Jason Kidd.
And have him teach a young kid. And then after that season, he retires and you bring him on staff. There's nothing wrong with that. But like you said, Steve Kerr's out there. I heard Kurt Rambis. I've heard Brian Shaw.
Well, Brian Shaw is the coach of the Nuggets. So he signed a 3-year contract.
But
if he gets fired, I mean,
I'm just saying in general. These are just names that I've heard.
What was the other one? Kurt Rambis, Fisher, Kerr, Shaw,
Jim Clemens. Clemens is his last name.
Yeah, not a well-known name, but again, a guy that Phil Jackson has a history with.
Exactly, 9 years with Phil. So I mean,
but these guys. But honestly, I don't have a problem with that. Do you?
I think I like what he's doing when he's trying to bring people in that
because
he's trying to bring a coaching staff that has some type of unity, and what
you have to have that. You have to.
And all these guys will have one thing in common, not only just being with Phil, but that triangle, and that's what he wants.
And I'll tell you what, going back to the history of Knicks coaches, they've brought in these guys that are the big names, and it just hasn't worked out. D'Antoni, Larry Brown,
Isaiah
Thomas. It even hurts to say that name, Isaiah Thomas. But it just didn't work out, and I think it's time to bring in a coach who's fresh, who's new to it, who has good ideas, different ideas.
Now that
may know this league better than the older guys do.
Now my only concern with Steve Kerr is, yeah, he has the experience with Phil, but does he have that coaching experience?
Well, he was the general manager of the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah,
he knows to put the team together.
Still, I mean,
I think they can coexist.
Does he have that experience? I mean, regardless who it is, you got Phil Jackson chirping in your ear no matter what. So that's
is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, exactly. So that's why I'm not that concerned in terms of experience. But
right. But
yeah, I don't know.
I'll tell you what. Here's something I told my father over the weekend.
Okay, let's hear it.
Every coach starts out without experience before. There was a time where Greg Popovich didn't have prior coaching experience. There was a time where Phil Jackson didn't have prior coaching experience. Right. You can never tell just because a guy doesn't have experience. You can't tell if he's going to be a bad coach.
You can't, but you could tell by the people he's surrounded with. So
I think Steve Kerr has surrounded himself with some good people because he's a good basketball mind.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean,
guy.
You coach. If you're on a coaching staff, you're an assistant for Pat Riley, and then you become a head coach.
Jeff Van Gundy.
You're in good company there.
Right.
You've learned from one of the best. So it all depends on who's there and who's around you.
I mean, Mike D'Antoni's assistant coach was his brother.
Yeah, and
so what does he know about basketball? Hey, Mike, I remember when you did that in the backyard with me.
In Italy.
Let's just do it. Yeah, let's just do it with Raymond Felton.
That'll work. Certainly worked.
And also something that was brought up by Phil Jackson in the locker room on the last day of the season, after the last day of the season concluded, was he said, some of you guys won't be here next year.
And you know what?
I don't know how he's going to work his zen right there, but, I mean,
well,
besides Carmelo.
He did speak today. And he did.
Who, Phil?
Yeah, he did speak today. And he brought up Carmelo and the Carmelo
you're right,
thing came up saying, that he's hoping Carmelo stays true to his word about taking a pay cut, because that would seriously help the team in terms of bringing in other players if he does take that pay cut. But at the same time, he did say, if Melo wants to leave, he leaves. He has no problem with it.
Phil, yeah, I tell you what, I have so much confidence in Phil Jackson. You know why? Because, first of all, losing Carmelo Anthony, me and you will both agree, it would be a bad thing, but it wouldn't be the worst thing.
It wouldn't be. It would not be the worst thing. It frees up so much opportunity for new people to come in.
Well, this year.
Just in general, for the future.
Right. It
Yeah.
really would.
Here's the
And
thing. But at the same time, with Carmelo, he's only getting older. And at this point of your career, you just want a championship. I don't care who you are. It's not about the money at this point. It can't be. And if it is, I'm sorry, you're greedy. At this point in your career, if you're still concerned about money, you're greedy.
You're right.
So he needs to do what's best for himself in terms of winning a championship. If he stays in New York, right now, he's not winning a championship.
No.
So,
Well, next year, he's definitely not winning a championship.
I think he strongly...
No matter where he goes, he's not winning a championship next year.
Depends.
Where's he going to go?
Chicago?
You think they're going to win a championship next year?
Why not? Why not?
Hey, I mean...
Why not? Look, Derrick Rose, hopefully.
I mean, he
Carmelo.
has to stay healthy.
Joakim Noah. I
Okay.
mean, those three, that's a tandem right there. What if he goes to Miami? What if he goes out to L.A.? I mean, if you look at
If
L.A.
he goes to the Lakers, he's not winning a championship.
I'm just saying, but if you go out to L.A., L.A. has Kobe Bryant, I think, signed for next year, and that's about it. I mean, they have some serious money that they could spend.
Yeah, all right. Well,
I mean, he's got a better chance of going to a bigger market like that and winning than staying in New York.
you're right, but hey, I'll tell you what. Don't doubt Phil.
I'm not
Just
down.
don't doubt Phil
I-
Jackson.
there is
Moves are coming. I'm telling you right now. I don't think that Raymond Felton will be on the team next year. I don't think Tyson Chandler will be on the team next
I
year.
don't think J.R. Smith will be on the team.
Next year?
No, I don't think so.
How are they going to get rid of him?
Any possible way.
Really?
Any possible way. And if I'm Phil Jackson, I'm looking in any possible way right now to get J.R. Smith off this team for a draft pick. Even if it's a second-round pick.
I think that Phil, the first big move Phil is going to make. Well, Kenyon Martin's a free agent. He won't be back. Prigioni might not be back because he signed a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. I can't remember if he has 1 year left on his contract. But he'll be gone. I'll tell you what. I can see Phil turning around and dealing away Chandler and Felton for a first-round pick in this year's draft.
I don't know if they're worth that. I don't think you're going to get that out of anyone.
Chandler and JR for a first-round pick.
I don't know. I don't know.
I say Phil just...
I think
Phil
he's...
goes up a lot.
At
think-
Chandler's age, he really doesn't show much.
Who are you going to get for them then, Joe? If you're going to get rid of JR... What draft pick? A second-round pick you're saying of JR Smith?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Get him off. Get him off. Get that money off. Get him off.
Right. To me, the worst money is Bargnani because he literally did nothing.
I mean, that's another terrible one. But I'm just saying, any way to get... You don't want that kind of a distraction on your team.
No.
Just get him off. Get him off. That's all I have to say about J.R. Smith.
A lot of questions.
A lot of questions, a lot of moves will certainly be made, and we're just gonna have to stay tuned to see what he does. But like you said, you have confidence in him. I have
confidence in him.
I
really
have
do.
a ton of confidence in him. But at the same time, I'm being realistic, and I realize that it could potentially be not a long wait, but it's not gonna be overnight. It's not gonna be one. It's not gonna be 2 seasons. I could see maybe in the 3rd season we're making noise. I say maybe next year.
Next year, without a doubt, we're not doing anything.
Next year, maybe we just miss the playoffs in a weak East again, or make it,
Because
But down the line,
I think next year Miami's going to start slowing down.
in the next 2 years, maybe when we'll come back to WICR in 2 years or something, we'll be like, you know what? They were right. We were listening. They were right. Joe D and John Franchini were right.
Right.
The Knicks are at top of the East.
But it doesn't start. All those moves don't start until there's a guy sitting on the bench coaching the team.
And that's what they got to figure out first.
Exactly. And I think that Steve Kerr would be the best guy for the job.
All right, we're going to take our final break of the evening. It looks like the NFL has released their schedule, so we'll dive into...
We'll just do that for the Jets and the Packers.
We'll just do that. The you hear him? The franchise commanding over here? We're going to do the Jets, the Packers. Anybody else? You want to do the Gales? You want to do the Gales?
The Gales.
The strength of schedule? All right, we'll be back. Stay tuned.